The FCC voted 3-2 to consider lifting its ban on in-flight cell use, such as voice calls and texting. The commission says new technology eliminates interference with cell towers on the ground, the reason for the decades-old ban.
The New York Times has recently released an article entitled "Keep Planes a Quiet Space," and in it they state there is no compelling reason to allow cell phone calls on planes other than to provide airlines with another source of revenue. However, I disagree with the main claim of this article because the New York Times fails to ground their argument on the historical reasons why cell phones were initially banned. In order to properly examine this issue, I must first discuss why the ban on cell phones was originally implemented, and then I can provide several compelling reasons that cell phones should no longer be prohibited. As I stated before, the New York Times article is based on an argument that misleads the reader and fails to represent all of the applicable evidence. Cell phones were originally banned by the FCC for use on airplanes because they were afraid that the electromagnetic interference would negatively affect the plane's navigation equipment. However, this is not the case anymore. The FCC just recently announced their plan to overturn the ban by stating, "Modern technologies can deliver mobile services in the air safely and reliably, and the time is right to review our outdated and restrictive rules." Joe Sharkey, a New York Times reporter who is fairly well researched on this issue, said, "After years of uncertainty, based mostly on fear that in-flight calls would negatively affect an airplane's navigational equipment, are slowly being worked out. But if cell phones do begin to be used, a social contract is in order. You make your calls short, sweet, and to the point. You don't chit-chat up there with a captive audience." Since the reason cell phones were originally banned is no longer applicable, cell phone use should in fact be accepted. We can easily see that the New York Times, while well-intentioned, did not acknowledge why the argument came about to begin with and is therefore misleading to the reader. However, there are still many people who advocate keeping the ban. They do this for several reasons. The New York Times states the primary reason people don't want cell phones: annoyance. In their article, they state, "Cell phones have enabled even the most annoying of us to find new ways to disturb the peace." But just because some particularly obnoxious people have abused cell phones in the past does not necessarily mean they should be prohibited for everyone. In fact, the author of a 2007 Time article made the keen observation that airplanes were never a quiet space anyway due to flight attendants constantly making announcements, selling drinks, or attempting to sell scratch cards. Adding the use of cell phones would not radically increase the noise level, especially when most people would just use them for text and email. Kevin Rogers also recently published an article addressing the concern of people abusing the ability to make in-flight calls by stating most people just want the ability to make a brief call and tell their kids goodnight or call for a cab. We can see here that many people who seek to be able to use cell phones only wish to use text and email features along with the occasional brief call. It would be irresponsible of the airline industry to continue the wrongful ban on cell phones with only the risk of a small minority abusing it. The reason that people wish to continue the ban on cell phones is annoyance. However, by allowing cell phones on planes, I believe that it will make the airplane less annoying. I ask you this question: which is more annoying? Someone typing away on their cell phone next to you, texting a friend, or someone sitting next to you telling you every depressing detail of their faltering love life? Cell phones could in fact make airplanes a more comfortable and less annoying environment by allowing people to communicate with the ones they love silently and leaving everyone else in peace and quiet. Policymakers still continue to wrestle with this issue. Some say that passengers should be able to make short calls or texts since it doesn't interfere with navigation equipment, while others are afraid that many will abuse this privilege. But those who oppose cell phone use fail to recognize several factors. First, the plane was never a quiet space to begin with. Second, most people who would use cell phones only want to make brief calls or texts. And finally, they assume that people have no common courtesy whatsoever. If a resolution between these two sides can't be met, Carl Hamel suggests an excellent compromise. He suggests creating a cell phone use seating section and a silent section that passengers would be able to choose between in order to appease both sides. Regardless of whether or not we take Hamel's suggestion, fear of having a few obnoxious people make a phone call is not a valid reason to prohibit everyone from using them, especially the mother who just wants to tell her kids goodnight. Thank you.